Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the elements of poetry. But we're not just looking at a list of boring terms. We're going on a journey of meaning to figure out exactly how poets take everyday, ordinary words and magically construct these vivid, living realities.
Let's kick things off with these absolutely beautiful lines from a poem titled The Road to the CLC. Now, this piece was written about the very real-world journey of an alternative learning system, or ALS, student in Abuyog Leyte in the Philippines. I mean, just reading that quick snippet, right? A splashing tricycle, words becoming little lights, you instantly get this incredible sense of motion and profound realization.
But it makes you wonder, how do mere words create this much light? How exactly does a writer take totally standard language and construct an emotional reality so strong that you actually feel the wet mud on a student's slippers or the warmth of their hope? Well, it's not magic. It's actually a super careful, deliberate use of literary elements. So today, we're unpacking the actual tools that make poetry come alive. And to really get a grip on these tools, we aren't just going to sit here looking at dry textbook definitions. No way. Instead, we're literally going to walk alongside this determined ALS student on their muddy road to the Community Learning Center. We'll use their journey to sequentially introduce and analyze the core elements of poetry. By the time we arrive at the classroom with them, you're going to see exactly how the mechanics of a poem create its absolute heart.
Okay, first things first. The absolute most crucial point is anchoring ourselves right at the beginning with the speaker, which you might also hear called the persona. Now, this is simply the voice talking in the poem. And a quick side note, that is not always the author. In our poem, The Road to the CLC, the speaker is this highly determined learner. Just picture them for a second. It just rained, the road is super difficult to navigate, and they're carefully carrying a notebook wrapped in a plastic bag just to protect it from the weather. Recognizing the speaker gives us our ground zero for empathy.
And knowing who is speaking directly informs our next element, which is structure. Think of structure as the physical architecture of the poem, right? The arrangement of lines and stanzas. A line is just a single row of text, and a stanza is a grouped block of those lines, kind of like a paragraph in normal prose. The poet really carefully organizes this learner's journey using structure, specifically building the whole narrative across 4 distinct stanzas that each consist of exactly 4 lines. It's this incredibly neat, steady progression that perfectly mirrors the steady, step-by-step walk of the student toward the learning center.
Just listen to how beautifully physical these lines feel as we walk with the speaker. The road is brown and slow, my slippers carry mud from home to class. You aren't just being told, hey, it's a difficult walk. You are actually experiencing the heaviness of that mud, the literal drag of the slippers. And that brings us directly to one of the absolute most vital tools in any poet's toolkit.
Imagery. Now, it's really interesting to note that while we often think imagery just means visual pictures, things we see, it actually encompasses words that appeal to any of the 5 senses. The poet uses this so powerfully later in the poem when the speaker passes their mother selling warm banana Q. The text says, her hands smell of sugar, smoke, and morning work. Just like that, we aren't just seeing the scene anymore. We are smelling the sweet sugar and the sharp smoke. We can practically feel the warmth. That right there is the sheer power of imagery. And alongside the senses of smell and sight, we obviously have the sense of hearing, which brings us to sound devices. These are elements like rhythm, repetition, rhyme, and alliteration. Now, our focus poem here is written in free verse. That just means it doesn't have a strict, bouncy rhyme scheme at the end of every single line. But don't be fooled, it definitely still utilizes sound devices. It uses this really natural walking rhythm and the subtle repetition of ideas surrounding rain, water, and light to almost subliminally pull us down that muddy road. It's incredibly pleasant and purposeful to the ear. So just as the student reaches the market area, amidst all the splashing water and the gray sky, the poet totally shifts our attention. We move from the literal mud on the ground to a profound internal emotion. They write, "My heart is a small lamp." And wow, this brilliantly illustrates figurative language. This is when words are used entirely beyond their literal everyday meaning. I mean, obviously the student's heart isn't literally a glass lamp filled with oil, right? It's a metaphor. It's a direct comparison showing us that the heart is holding on to this bright, fragile, guiding hope. And this metaphor actually beautifully sets up a simile later at the very end of the poem, where the diverse learners rise together like sunlight returning after the rain. Remember, metaphors say something is something else, while similes say something is like something else. But both of them, they make abstract feelings incredibly real. Now, all these vivid details generate deep emotional atmospheres, which brings us to an important distinction that honestly trips a lot of people up: tone versus mood. Tone is the poet or speaker's own attitude toward the subject. So in this poem, the speaker's tone is fiercely hopeful, determined, and really respectful of their journey. Mood, on the other hand, is the feeling created inside you, the reader. As you read about the mother's support and the student's small lamp of a heart, the mood generated within you is likely one of warmth, inspiration, and admiration. Think of it like this: tone is projected, mood is received. When a poem is truly exceptionally successful, we get what is called organic unity. This literally means that all the different parts of the poem are working harmoniously together to support one main message. In The Road to the CLC, absolutely nothing is wasted. The rain, the muddy slippers, the notebook and the plastic bag, the mother's warm banana cue, the small lamp, the sunlight, all of these pieces lock together perfectly like a giant puzzle. They aren't just random thoughts. They're a unified, incredibly focused machine driving toward a singular point. And that organic unity, it points directly to our next element: the theme. The theme is the overarching message or the core life lesson of the poem. For our learner in late, all those unified elements we just talked about deliver the profound theme that education, hope, and perseverance can help us move forward no matter how massive the challenges or how muddy the roads might actually be. To kind of summarize our journey so far, you can see how these technical tools map directly to the evidence right there in the text. The speaker aligns perfectly with the ALS learner. The imagery aligns with the brown, slow road and the rich smell of sugar and smoke. The figurative language ties directly to the heart as a small lamp. And the theme connects right back to that overarching message of continuing education despite hardship. It's essentially a perfect blueprint of how the poem was built from the ground up.
But you know what's so amazing about poetry? It doesn't just exist in some vacuum of technical terms. Beyond all these structural elements, we see how poetry actually reflects real-world values. And in this piece, it branches beautifully into two categories. First, you've got the individual values of the student, their deep perseverance, hope, and responsibility. But then second, you have the communal values, the family support from the mother, the deep-seated respect for education, and the spirit of bayanihan, which, if you don't know, is this absolutely wonderful Filipino concept of communal unity and cooperation. It's beautifully illustrated when all these diverse learners finally sit together inside the learning center.
Consider this incredibly powerful quote from the second stanza. The mother says to her child, "Your dream is also food for our tomorrow." I mean, wow. That line alone reminds us that poetry isn't just some abstract exercise to be graded in a classroom. It's a vital living lens for processing our complex family responsibilities, our deepest hopes, and the everyday reality of our community life. It literally bridges the gap between a single student's notebook and the future survival and thriving of an entire family. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take these tools we've just learned, identifying speakers, finding imagery, uncovering metaphors, and actually apply them to the real world around you. Look at your own environment through this brand new poetic lens. I want to leave you with a question to really ponder. What single object in your community tells a story of hope? Keep learning, keep looking for the poetry in the everyday, and hey, thank you so much for joining me on this journey.